Welcome back. Is it even possible to have a magical day at Disneyland if you're pinching pennies? Can that even be done? We think so. Find out our money-saving tips in this episode of Dark Ride Dads. Hey there. Thanks for joining us on Dark Ride Dads. I'm your host, Zach. Joined with me, as always, Jason and Coop. And today we thought we would talk about some of the cheapest ways. I hate saying it that way, but some of the cheapest ways that you can still enjoy Disneyland. The way that you can maximize your dollar and still have a good time, right? So we've done a lot of trips to Disneyland as families and a few together. And sometimes you got to just go cheap. And so we're going to talk about that today and give you some of our tips, some of the things that we found that you can still do that make the park magical and still don't break the bank.
Break that bank. Yeah.
No, I think it's interesting because, again, here's another area where like you could do Disney a lot of different ways, and I think there's a great ways to save money and still have a great time in the park.
For sure.
So let's break some of those down and get into some of that for y'all.
So what's the first thing that comes to your mind then? Like one of the most expensive. Say you're going with your family, you got your whole family. What's one of the things that you find that you're going to spend the most money on typically?
Food is always, especially in the park, like 100%. Food is always scary because if you buy every kid a meal 3 times a day inside the park, you're talking hundreds of dollars a day.
You got snacks, right? Mm-hmm. You got drinks, So I agree. I think food can very quickly, because it's all around you, right? There's so much good food there that you're just, let's get this, let's get them. Pretty soon you're like, how do we spend $300 on food today, right? Especially if you've got a large family. So Coop, tell us a little bit about what you've done or some of the secrets that you found that can kind of help, so that you're not spending hundreds of dollars on food each day.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing to really talk about is bringing your own food into the park. It's something that we've done in the past as a family. It's really easy to grab a locker either inside of the park or outside of the park in that little picnicky area that's got great big huge lockers. I don't think a ton of people know about that place, to be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty well hidden.
It's a well kept secret,
and it's not.
And it's the only place where you can also, fun fact, store your big luggage. Like if you have big luggage and you have to leave that day, you can, if you get to the park early, you can get those big lockers. There's a few of them. So
yeah, but like if you have a cooler, like it's so easy to just shove that cooler inside of that locker, have it there.
Does it fit a whole cooler?
Oh yeah, it will.
The luggage ones will fit a little cooler.
See, I have less experience with those, but I love the lockers inside the park. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the lockers inside the park because you can bring your own food in. They don't care, right?
No.
You can bring it in. You can bring in a cooler bag, things that you need to keep cool. All your sandwiches, just whatever, right? And then you throw that in the locker, and then you just go back to the locker for lunch, grab a table.
For sure. And like bring drinks. That's the one thing I think that sneaks up on you quite a bit inside of the park is, holy crap, drinks are like $5 a pop. Yeah. Like if you want a Coke, it's $4.96.
Anything but water is gonna
it just wrecks you.
And water's that's a good segue, right? I know that a lot of people, like my wife, for example, I've tried to dissuade her from doing this, but she has to have a water bottle, right? I mean, that's just every day. But most people, I don't know, maybe people do know, but water is free inside the park, right?
Yeah.
Any counter service, you can walk right up, ask for a water. They've usually got them right there ready to go.
You don't have to keep your cup. Just throw it away when you're done. Go get another one when you need one.
Yeah. So
It's perfect.
I don't think you have to bring it's just one more thing to keep track of. It's one more thing to carry around, lug around. And,
you hold it on the rides.
Right. You got to worry about it. Did I lose it? Whatever. If you're thirsty, and you will be all the time in Disneyland, go get a drink for free. There's also 2 places.
They don't even roll your eyes. Like they're usually pretty friendly about it too.
Yeah,
they're not like, oh my gosh.
Always with a smile.
You're like, you again. But if you do bring a water bottle, there's 2 places that I know of where you can refill that water bottle. The one is over in Tomorrowland, right at the left side of the service windows. There's a little station there. You can fill up your water bottle. And then in Plaza Inn, right, you can just walk in and they have the fountain drinks. And I think maybe at Pizza Planet too, but those are the places that I know that if you insist on bringing your water bottle.
And I enjoy, like when we use the lockers, we'll use the lockers for lunches for the kids. Like we'll always hit up Costco or a grocery store before we go into the park.
Yeah.
Like as soon as we land or whatever, we do a shopping trip. And
you can also do grocery delivery to wherever you're staying.
We have our breakfast in the hotel, and then we go to the park and we have our lunch right out of the lockers.
Yeah, if you can find a hotel that has a free breakfast, man, go crazy.
Oh yeah,
like
that's the key.
Go ham. Like you load up, and I even remember like we stayed at one that had like yogurts.
Yeah.
and they had fruit out, and it was just like, yep.
You
That's
throw
all
that in
coming
that-
with me
Throw that in that cooler bag, and that's
for real.
you're good to go.
And I'm saving money.
That's actually one of my cheapskate dad tips is we won't stay in a hotel unless there's a free breakfast, right? We just won't, because that's saving you money right there.
Well, that means you haven't stayed on property then, because they don't do free breakfast.
This guy, what would it be like to be Cooper? You know,
It's
just not a problem.
so rich.
It's pretty good.
I bet. for real folk, right? Like us who actually watch our dollars.
People like us are looking for places to save 50 cents. So one thing that I like is the pretzels. I really love the Disneyland pretzels. The jalapeno cream cheese is my favorite. But in the park, if you're in Disneyland Park and you're looking for a pretzel, they're $6 at the pretzel carts, but they're only $5.50 at Refreshment Corner. So you can save a little bit on the pretzels there too.
Hey, now.
See, that means something to you and I. That 50 cents, he throws that into the fountain on the way, right?
Yeah.
It's just like,
As for the Snow White wishing well, that one
doesn't matter to me.
I do think that's another good segue though, is like, I think about the pretzels and they're pretty big. Like we always share a pretzel.
Mm-hmm.
There's no chance I'm buying each of my kids their own pretzel, right? Like you buy one pretzel, you share.
Maurice's pretzel bread's like that too. You could definitely split it. You don't want to, but.
Oh yeah, the pretzel bread's fantastic. And I mean, it's so heavy, right? That like, that's almost like a meal right there. I don't remember, is it $6 or $7 for that? But that's something that you can share too.
Worth it.
If we're talking about sharing the items that you can share in the park, right? Like you can do that too. Not everybody needs their own, pretzel, churro, whatever. If you got little kids, there's no way they're going to finish that whole thing themselves.
Well, that's a good point. So when I go with my wife and my 3 little girls, our oldest will eat her own thing, but like Disneyland portion sizes, it comes one size for you or it's for your kid. It's what it is, right? So if we get an ice cream or we get a adorable snowman over in California Adventure, right? If we do stuff like that, my wife and I just won't get one. We'll have little kids eat, and they always eat like a third of it, and then they're distracted, and we get what we need.
So here's a real cheapskate tip. And I'm not too proud to say that I'm a bit of a cheapskate. We'll bring Ziploc bags sometimes, right? And if there's like leftovers or if there's something that somebody couldn't finish, throw it in that Ziploc bag.
Dude, you're spending $15 on a sandwich? Like, Ziploc your heart out.
Yeah, you're not going to just throw that in the garbage, right? Well, you might.
I mean, if I saw you do it, I'd be like, oh, gall.
Cooper might just throw it at somebody for kicks. I don't need this. So, can you think of it? Is there anything else that we're missing as far as food goes?
I think we should definitely do a future episode about shareable food.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree.
Because like there's so many things inside of the park where I think you feel the pressure to buy everybody one of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like you just don't have to do that. Yeah. Despite what Christine McCarthy says about reducing the portion sizes. Like there's still some great value to be had by sharing meals inside of the park. And I think we could break that down.
Where to go, right?
For sure.
You might think like, maybe everybody does big portion sizes, but there's a couple of specific places that you really buy 1 or 2 things, and that's going to feed a family.
Yeah, and you can get a ton of value for sure.
And speaking of value, also, this isn't, not necessarily a way to save money, but like to get the most for your money when you go to get ice cream at Clarabelle's or was it Gibson's?
Gibson
Girl. Both of those places, it's only $1 to add an extra scoop.
Oh,
get a
pro
little
tip.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Sweet.
Worth it.
I love Gibson Girl, just for the record. Like, it's one of my favorites.
If you got extra dollars.
An extra $1. You'll be all right.
You got an extra $1.
Cool.
Well,
so I think
the next thing I think that, outside of food, you got little kids, they're going to want to buy stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Every little kid's going to want souvenirs, balloons all day long. And so that's another thing that I think feel like we need to talk about a little bit is what do you do with souvenirs? Right? What's the best way to get your kids something they're going to like? They're going to remember that magical trip, but not absolutely destroy your wallet. So
and Disney, bless their hearts, they have a gift shop at the end of every ride. So you exit the ride into
and
the
every
gift
transition
shop.
between lands and every cart. It's
so there's an opportunity for a fit at the end of every ride for your kids.
And so this might not satisfy your kids, right? Their souvenir. But for me, one of my favorite things to do is just pictures.
Yeah.
Pictures and videos all day long. And, there's so much to see and do in Disneyland. the odds that you're going to do it all right in 1 or 2 days. But if you're just taking pictures like a fool, right, then you're going to have, these souvenirs that are going to last a lifetime.
Here's a tangent.
Uh-oh.
What's the most expensive souvenir you bought in the park?
Oh, my lightsaber for sure.
Lightsaber. Yeah.
Okay, so we paid
both of my lightsabers.
we
for
paid
sure.
to build lightsabers.
Coop's like, I bought a souvenir bag of gold once in the hotel. What's yours, Kimosabi?
Building 2 lightsabers.
Yeah,
It was
they really
expensive.
They've really done something there.
But like to your point, right? Like, and that's an amazing experience. Like building a lightsaber, it's worth it in my opinion. Like it's such a cool experience. But like our lightsabers mostly stay in the bags, and we look at those pictures all the time.
Oh yeah, when you first light that thing up, take a video, right?
For
If
real.
your kid lighting that up or swinging that thing around in the dark, like for sure, that's.
Well, and a picture will capture the memory better than the lightsaber will. You know
For
what
sure.
I mean? Like when you look at the picture, you'll remember it like you might not even looking at the lightsaber itself. So pictures are definitely a good one.
Yeah.
All right, Coop, what's another one? I know that you're fond of Autopia
I do enjoy Autotopia.
for some reason. Is there a good souvenir there?
There is.
All
You
right,
can
well,
get a free little driver's license there,
Do
right?
they still do that?
They still do it. It's in the booth.
It's been
So
a
if you're
minute.
going like towards monorail, the ramp up to monorail and the ramp coming out for the exit of Autotopia, right there in the middle, there's a little booth, and you can
Nice.
pick up an Autotopia
I
driver's
do think
license.
the only side note to that is they can run out.
Yeah, they do.
I have seen later in the day, like once they're out,
And that's
they're
that's
done.
true, I think, with most free things within the park.
Totally.
Like there are a few opportunities to get free things in the park, but it's come early, come fast. Because like that's another one that comes to mind is at the end of Jungle Cruise when you're getting off.
Oh yeah,
You can ask for a Jungle Cruise map, and they are rad.
They're
they are
really
so cool, but they do not last very long. So it's like one of the first things you do if you're in Adventureland, ride Jungle Cruise, get off, ask one of the cast members, and they'll give you one, and they're cool.
and if you don't want it ruined, go throw that bad boy in the locker.
Yeah,
right. Like,
put it in that cooler bag.
We've done that because if you throw that in your backpack or something else, guaranteed it's getting ruined.
Yeah.
because they're not real high quality, but they're very cool, well designed, and a sweet souvenir.
My daughter, every time we go, gets a map. It's like, even though she has money for souvenirs, and she literally has like the map pinned above her bed, like as a poster, right, of Disneyland.
And I love that they change.
Yeah.
Like I love that they change the designs of the maps. So like every time we go, I grab one, and they're themed differently. It's cool.
And it's the best. I think the best time, maybe the only place to ask for them is right when you're getting off the ride, right? As you're leaving, there's that little stand. That's where they keep them. So ask one of the skippers, ask them for a map, and if they still have one, they'll give you one. So that's another really cool free souvenir. And while we're talking about maps, I like to just collect the park maps.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like depending on the time of the year, you could have like there's a Christmas one or a Halloween one or something else like that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about. It was like the park maps themselves. They have different themes. Like Pixar Fest is going on right now. It's Pixar themed.
Right.
Like it's super rad and it's cool. So I'm the same boat. Like every time we go, I always grab a map,
Yeah.
and I have a whole pile of them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's no secret the pins are a great one, right?
Yeah.
Like you can also get free pins. Go tell them, I mean, even if it's not your birthday, go tell them you're celebrating something, right?
Yeah.
You get an I'm celebrating, right, pin, right? I don't know, it makes your experience more magical because everyone in the park is there having the time of their lives. So it's just kind of fun to get, I don't know, friendly comments from strangers all day long,
And the
right?
cast members, right? If they see you wearing a pin and it's happy, we're celebrating an anniversary, like they'll like make a big deal.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
the good
super
ones,
cool.
right? They'll call it, hey, happy birthday, Cooper, or whatever, right? And so I remember one time when our youngest was like 4 or 5, I think, and he saw a couple of people wearing those buttons, right? And he kind of freaked. He freaked out. He was like, where'd they get that one? Where'd they get that one? And we went to town hall, and he's a little OCD with some of that stuff. And he was saying, I saw this pin, and they literally hooked him up with every pin in the park.
Yeah.
So that's how we got an honorary Disneyland citizen of Disneyland, right? They called him Button Boy. He was just covered head, like shoulder, right? He just jingled like a freaking jingle bell everywhere he walked. It was great. So
That's
yeah,
adorable.
the buttons, the suit, like those, if they're young enough, like they're gonna love those.
The cast members are so cool about it too. Like everyone that you run across, and you're like, hey, can we check out the buttons? Like they'll pull out everything they've got.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you can pick whatever. Right. Like they're not going to be stingy about it. They're not going to ask you 10 questions.
Right.
So I do have a hot take on souvenirs and the cheap for kids. So we've tried multiple things because our kids, they get whiny at Disneyland. They really they want all
Why?
the stuff,
Why?
right? They want all the stuff. So we've tried a few different things. One of these is a real big risk taker, but I will share that in a minute. The first one though is if our kids find something they like, oftentimes what we'll do is like if we don't want to get a locker, you don't want to keep track of a balloon all day, right? All those types of things.
Yep.
We will actually just say, all right, well, we could hop online. Let's see if we can find it. And they actually can just ship it right to your house is what we tell them. Right. And it's Amazon, but we're like, hey, look, they have the Disney, this duck that you want. We can get it sent right to your house. And it ends up being cheaper and it'll deliver right to
while
them.
you're in line. Right.
Yeah.
Like we do the same thing with our kids. We'll say like, especially when they were younger, we were like, take a picture of it. And they like that, right? They're like, oh, I love this. And we're like, we're going to be here for 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, is that the one thing you want right now? Let's take a picture of it.
Here's a fun story.
Line, you can look it up.
You two did that to me when we went.
Yeah.
Because we were walking in downtown Disney and we walked into the Star Wars Depot and I saw those droid bowls and I was like, I've got to buy those. And you were like,
and we didn't want to wait for Cooper.
We're here for 3 days.
We're like, we're here for 3 days, Cooper. Do you want to be lugging those around all day long?
You're going to wear that today?
Yes.
I do. I'm going to wear them.
And they made me wait. They made me wait.
Your kids will probably say the same, right? They'll come up with every excuse. But if you can just be like, let's take some pictures so we can look at those later while we're in line and make sure that,
decide what you really want.
Yep.
So I think that's a great idea. If you have like a budget or a money amount that they can spend, right? If you got that limit, that's a great idea. Something that we actually tried, and this is big risky, and it might not work with your kids, but for my kids, it worked great because when we go to the park, it's just demand after demand. They want all the things, and it's always a tantrum. So what we did actually is I saved some money, and I was like, oh, this will be great. I saved a bunch of money. I'm like, I'm going to let our kids just go ham. I'm going to tell them they can get whatever they want.
Yeah.
Right? Big risky.
Oh, that is a big risk.
I was going Cooper style. Like, you guys can get anything you want. And what's funny is by the end of the trip, they all only got one thing and didn't even spend the amount that they would spend on a normal trip. Because there is so much merch at Disneyland.
Oh, it's overwhelming.
That's exactly what it did. Because there's so much stuff to buy.
Yeah.
The shelves are full of a million things. And then it was like too much pressure. It was too much freedom. They didn't know what to do.
Yep.
And so it's almost like they limited themselves. And they're like, oh,
that's
I don't know which
parenting.
I should get, this or this. I'm like, well, you could do both. And they're like, yeah, but I really like this one. And it was just too much. Like, it just broke their...
And that's a really good point too. One of the, I don't know, rules, I guess, that we have is a lot of times you'll see just like a Princess Barbie, right? Or something. Mm-hmm. And your kids freak out over it. And you're like, I swear I saw that in Target. Like I saw that in Walmart for $10 cheaper on Tuesday. Right.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that my wife and I do. We tell the kids, we're like, look, unless it says Disneyland on it, or unless it like says the year that we're there, something that's really going to like solidify it as a souvenir from the park. Or like, we can get that. We can get that anywhere. And sometimes that's a tough sell for kids too, right? They're like, oh, but I really want this. I mean, if it's mouse ears or something, like that's awesome. Like you get their names on that. Yeah. But that's kind of one of the things we've done with our kids is like, if it's not only available at the park, chances are you can find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well, and limit them, right? If your kids want to buy shirts and hats and all this stuff, like there's a lot of things that you can buy before you go to the park.
Yeah,
like if you show up in your Mickey shirt with your Mickey stuff, right? With your mini backpack or whatever, if you come with that's stuff they're not going to have to ask for now.
Yeah.
So it kind of narrows the scope.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
I think the last free souvenir that I can think of is in DCA, right? The animators, the sketch.
Oh, dude,
that's such a great experience.
I did that with my daughter.
Super fun to do, but it's free.
That was her favorite thing we did, and she left her drawings in the airport, and it was a disaster. Like a 4-hour cry session. It was rough because it was like one of the most fun things we did. We just went like 4 or 5 times and did all our favorite characters.
Yeah,
so cool.
Yeah, that's what we did with our kids. Is we just pulled into the animation building. I love that building, by the way. It's gorgeous. I love it. Yeah. But then you go and you look at the schedule and you see like, here's all the characters that we want to draw. And like my boy was all about Grogu. And he drew his Grogu and it was pretty good. And like it hung on his wall for months. Like he was just so proud of it, right? Like he was so proud of it.
When it comes on the cool paper and
it's got the theme paper, the whole thing.
And I think like it's been a while since we've done that, but sometimes doesn't the actual animator give theirs to somebody in the audience? Yeah. So if you're lucky enough, you could get a hand drawn picture from
one of the animators
at Disney. So yeah, two other cheaper souvenirs that I can think of that are maybe more fun for smaller kids, the younger kids, but like those penny smashers.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of cool. And I think you can even buy books where you can
Easy to collect.
them
They're
all.
easily
Now
collectible.
that's the 50 cents. I think it's. Does it provide the penny?
No, you got to.
Okay,
I
so
think you got to
gotta
put
have
the
your own
penny in.
penny. So that's kind of a thing. But
Which is crazy because you almost have to prepare and like plan to bring the change
Yeah.
Right.
with you because
Yeah.
like I don't carry cash anymore.
Or even the
Of course not.
what are those, like the fortune teller cards that you can get, on Main Street? You can but you need
Oh, yeah.
change for that too.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, you gotta have change.
Yep.
So yeah, that's one of the things. Like if you come prepared, like you can find the penny smashers. I know there's one in Pirates. There's one in Critter Country.
yeah, like right when you're getting off the rides, some of them will be right there.
They'll be
There's
right
4
there.
or 5 different designs, and so
It's pretty fun. I think Galaxy's Edge has one too.
Yeah.
So like
Right.
it's almost as fun to have a little like scavenger hunt to find them, and then when you do find them, you just slap them in there and crank those things out. It's pretty fun. My kids love it.
that is cool. We enjoy magnets too. Our whole fridge is just covered in Disney magnets from all the different times that we've gone. And so, like I mentioned earlier, like the year, right? Like that's a really cool way to be like, oh yeah, we went in 16 or 17 or whatever, and we again on the magnet we try and find one that says Disneyland on it, right?
Yeah.
It's not as easy as you think. A lot of times you're to find a magnet that says Disneyland and has the year, or it's trickier. But magnets are $5 or $6. Like that's another cheap souvenir. And then I remember when our kids were younger, they were obsessed with autographs. I don't know
yeah.
if your kids
The
are
autograph books,
into that,
dude.
but like that's another thing you can find on Amazon, right? You could just find
Yeah.
like a generic Disneyland book
Yep.
full with just white pages. And our kids, I remember one trip that was all they wanted to do. They just wanted to run around,
Get
their-
all the
but That's a
autographs.
great,
Yeah.
That's adorable.
You can take a video, you can get a picture of them doing that. They're
Yeah.
beaming, and then they have that book that they can look through. Our kids are older, but they still look through those.
How tough is it if you're one of those characters that you can't really see very well, and they're like, "Here, autograph this."
Well, yeah, they're like, hold on. Captain Hook, man,
yeah, right.
what's he doing?
How's he doing that?
What's he doing?
What about somebody like Stitch? Like he barely has hands. Like is he palming that thing and being like Stitch?
Man, they got
Both hands.
It's magic. It's Disney magic. That's how they do it.
How much training do they put into those characters? They're like, you have to nail this autograph before we suit you up.
Oh, I remember one time we were doing the character breakfast,
Yeah.
right? And Hook came walking by, and my son was labeling them throughout the day. Like number 1, I got this character. Number 2, I got this character. And so I think he had just started because
Did he learn that from you?
Probably.
Did he like timestamp
I
it
mean,
as well?
Documented it.
He's a
Yeah.
pretty smart kid. But he had number 1, and as he opened the page to give it to Hook, right, to give him his autograph, Hook saw the number 1 and he stopped him and he scribbled out the number 1, and then he signed that page, and you know what I mean. So it's like the attitude of Captain Hook, right? So like stuff like that.
Signed it. That was the Hook signature
Yeah.
right there.
And he like stopped him with his hook, and kind of stared at him and then signed it. Like just
That's
just
adorable,
stared. It was
right?
really, really
That's a cool experience.
So
That's so
autographs
cool.
can be a really cheap and fun and cool memory
Yeah.
for kids as well.
Yeah, I'll bet your boy's never going to forget that.
Oh yeah, no, he loves it.
Speaking of cheap or free and unforgettable, the Boudin Bakery tour.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
You gotta get yourself some free bread. I mean, it won't be free because you eat it and then you have to buy
have it.
some.
You have to have more.
But
That's true.
if you're in a rush, in a pinch, you can get us some free bread and go
It is a cool tour. I don't know if you guys like. I usually take my kids through it, and they're
every time.
somewhat interested.
It's like
Yeah.
5-10 minutes,
Yeah.
right?
You're like,
Huh.
just
And it's air conditioned.
in 2 minutes, they'll be interested when they're eating it, right?
For real. For real. And the other thing, like, I'm going to encourage everybody to ask is like, if you're at a sit down and you decide you do want to have a sit down meal and it's relatively close to somebody's birthday, like, just ask. Just tell your
yeah.
server, ask your waiter, be like, hey, it's our birthday. It's this guy's birthday. Can we get a free dessert? And sometimes they'll say yes. Sometimes they say no.
Yeah. Or
Sometimes-
just
Like, it
ask if
doesn't
they
hurt
have
to
something
say-
special.
Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Sometimes
No.
it just depends on your waiter, right?
Yeah,
Like-
it does
like-
for sure.
We got one for our anniversary once. I remember that.
Yeah.
We did, and we
Oh.
didn't even ask. We just mentioned we're just like, oh yeah, or maybe we had the button. I don't remember, but they just brought it out and
Yeah.
surprised us.
Dude,
They're
that's cool.
they're
At the
"Happy
least, you'll get a
anniversary."
song, right? Like if you
Yeah.
don't, if they don't have something for you,
They'll
They'll
make
do
you feel
something for you,
special.
yeah.
Like we were at Goofy's, which if you're going cheap, don't go to Goofy's. Not worth it. But
Character.
yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
character
yeah.
and like the food's okay.
They're so fun though.
It's fun.
They're
It's just
fun.
expensive,
It
man.
is.
For like
It
what
is.
it is, it's
Yeah.
expensive. But like I remember, we told the waiter that it was our daughter's birthday, and they made a big deal out of it, and they brought her an ice cream, and it was
That's
even
so
in like
great.
one of the Mickey bowls. Like it was pretty cool.
Well, this isn't a cheap tip, but while we're on the topic, that just reminded me, we've done like the character breakfast and stuff too. My wife is gluten free, and they're usually really good about asking and stuff like that. But if you're worried about that or concerned about, you know, like dietary restrictions or whatever, just make sure, just ask. Like if they don't ask you and you mention it, a lot of times they'll be really, really cool about making you something specific that will make you something that you can eat and you don't have to worry about it. So
as we prepare to wrap up this episode, should we talk about the most magical free experience you can have at Disneyland?
Comes at the end of the day.
You have to write it out. You have to
I've
be at the
only
very end.
experienced it once when I was with Zach.
I've experienced it once as well, but I wasn't with y'all.
I've had twice. It's happened twice, but
when it happens, it's pretty magical.
Yeah.
Like
It's incredible.
you feel pretty special.
You want to tell us what that secret is?
So if you're close to closing time, you're shutting that park down.
I think it has to be after closing, right?
I think it does too.
It's got to be right at the
Like
end.
you've ridden your last ride. The park
People
is
are
officially
leaving the park.
closed.
Do we want to tell this? Do we want to tell this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Like,
mean,
this is why they're
this is-
here.
Yeah.
Keep going.
This is why they're here.
Like and subscribe.
If the park is closed and you're heading out, just wander by some of the churro carts
Just meager a little.
and just
Don't make eye contact though. Because last time we
Maybe
went
if you're
and we
Jason.
looked, they saw and they're like, "Oh, we know what you're doing," and they immediately gave churros to somebody else. Like we watched it happen. So like,
Yeah.
I can tell
they
you-
don't want you to be vultures.
having little kids helps.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
It helps.
100%.
That's the key.
But
Try
like,
to look pathetic if you can, right? Just try to be kind of like, oh, it's been a long
hungry.
churro
hungry,
hits, but I
Daddy.
don't have the money though.
But yeah, you can score free churros at the end of the night when the park is closed. They're already made and they're just trying to close. I think they do it with popcorn too.
I think so. I've never got popcorn, but
I've seen them hand out
Churros,
popcorn. I've never gotten the popcorn, but I have nailed a churro before.
it is really cool though. Even if it doesn't happen to you, just if somebody's walking by and they just come out, they're like, "Would you like some free?" And like people just line up, right? They're like,
Yeah.
"Seriously?"
For real.
And that's
Yeah.
one of the like the one time that it happened to us and we were with our kids. Like they were just that walk back to the hotel.
Skipping, man.
Nobody was in the mood
Yeah.
for a churro, right? At 12:30 at night, but like that was like the best walk back to the hotel.
But
ever.
when you get one,
You get a free churro, you're not going to say no, right?
You also take a picture.
Yeah.
Like you hold it up, you're like, yeah,
free
Look
churro.
what we did.
free $5.
So kids, if you want to get to Disneyland,
Look pathetic.
tell your parents that they can use you as a way to get free churros.
It's worth it.
Get yourself that ticket.
It's worth it.
Sweet. So I think those are some of our best tips. I don't know. I can't
Yeah.
think of anything else. You got
That's
anything
just
else?
that's just a few of the tips that we've come up with. Yeah, so our next episode, we're going to talk a little bit about going cheap outside of the park, hotels, travel, all that kind of stuff. We'll have some tips and some tricks. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please give us a like and subscribe, and leave some comments down below. Let us know what we can do next time, or what you're looking for in the next episode of Dark Ride Dads. Thanks.